Jamaica remains under hurricane watch as Beryl barrels through the Caribbean. The center of the Category 4 system is expected to move quickly westward to west-northwestward through the southeastern and central Caribbean Sea today through Wednesday when the hurricane nears Jamaica. Significantly, heavy rainfall, strong winds and devastating storm surges are anticipated. Maximum sustained winds are near 240 kilometers per hour with higher gusts. Principal Director of the Meteorological Service, Evan Thompson, says at this time the Category 4 storm has shifted and will not directly hit Jamaica. He says it is expected to pass southwest of the island.
We're also seeing over the past few hours that there has been a slight shift in the forecast projected track of this system, with it now being expected to have its center move not directly over the island, but just off our coastline. This could change in the next 24 hours. There could be a shift that brings it back over the island. Therefore, we have to maintain our alertness and maintain our monitoring of this system. The current projection is that on passing Jamaica, the system is likely to be a Category 2 hurricane, and that means extremely dangerous winds could cause extensive damage. It's nothing to scoff at because it is still a serious and dangerous situation.
Principal Director of the Met Service, Evan Thompson. He says Beryl has already passed through most of the eastern Caribbean. The center of Beryl will move away from the southern Windward Islands during the next few days. Some weakening is expected in the central Caribbean by midweek. The Met Service says all small craft operators, including fishers from the Keys and Banks, should by now be in port and are further urged to complete their necessary safety precautions without delay. Inlets and bays along the southern coastline are at risk of storm surge flooding. Prime Minister Andrew Holness has indicated that a state of public emergency could be declared to give members of the security forces the powers to ensure public order in the event the country is devastated by Hurricane Beryl. He said members of the security forces will need the cover to crack down on any possible looting following the passage of the hurricane.
No decision has yet been taken. The Cabinet will reconvene in another hour or so. And when we review all the recommendations and presentations made, then we will inform the nation as to the implementation of orders under the DRMA. This is very important. It's very important to, one, establish that there is a disaster and that emergency rules would kick in. Very important for accountability afterwards. Sometimes, after disasters have passed, the accountability process sometimes does not incorporate that there was a disaster. And so it is important that the framework be well established. So it is likely that we will implement orders under the Disaster Risk Management Act. The nation will know this before 5 p.m. today.
Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Meanwhile, he says the government has reinforced the communication channels of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management in preparation for Hurricane Beryl. He says the Jamaica Information Service will take the lead in ensuring the public gets the necessary information on any decision to be taken by ODPEM as it responds to emergencies. Meanwhile, local government minister Desmond McKenzie says the National Disaster Council has been mobilized. Speaking this afternoon at a press briefing at the office of the Prime Minister, Mr. McKenzie said early warning systems have been activated on the eastern end of the island, expected to be most affected by the storm.
We have already identified the areas where we are saying to the public, places like Port Maria, other areas we have put up early warning systems. I want to give the country the assurance that the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management is in a position to respond and to respond positively to any outcome that faces us over the next couple of hours. The Jamaica Fire Brigade, one of our first respondents, has been provided with the necessary resources. They have had new equipment that will allow them to offer the kind of response services that will be required at this time.
Mr. McKenzie adds that more than 800 shelters are on standby to be opened once the storm hits.
Our shelters, once we are given the green light, we will activate the 870 shelters that is situated across the country. Relief supplies have been already secured. Parish disaster coordinators are in a state of readiness. Our shelter managers are also in a state of readiness. I'm going to ask the country to be ready to work with us, to work with themselves, to ensure that we minimize the effects of the spending hurricane.
Local Government Minister Desmond McKenzie. He says emergency funding has been provided to municipal corporations to carry out immediate drain cleaning and to mitigate against possible flooding. Municipal corporations across the island have also been instructed to identify homeless people and provide the necessary shelter for them during the passage of the storm. And a large contingent of police and military personnel will be deployed across the island to maintain public order and to protect vital infrastructure during the passage of the storm. Commissioner of Police Dr. Kevin Blake says the High Command has called in members who were on leave as part of its strategy to increase the number of boots on the ground.
Our mobile patrol will be concentrating primarily within the domestic spaces and the business districts. And our quick response, which may be extremely relevant given what may happen on our roadway, will be out in their full numbers to help to respond to incidents and also to protect our business communities. There are some key vital infrastructure that we have been looking at that we will be placing emphasis on looking at protecting in collaboration with our JDF. And these include Petrojam, our airports, our business districts, our hospitals, the major road networks, our courts, prisons, and all scheduled premises, including our high commissions and our embassies.
Police Commissioner Dr. Kevin Blake. He says the JCF will also be positioning heavy-duty equipment across the island to assist in search and rescue and disaster recovery efforts. Police command centres will be activated across the island starting tomorrow. And the country's two telecommunications providers, along with the Jamaica Public Service Company, have activated their emergency plans ahead of Hurricane Beryl. This was disclosed by Transport Minister Beryl, who also provided an update on the island's fuel reserves.
In terms of the telecommunication companies, both Flow and Digicel have assured me that their emergency plans are in place, and I'm also in touch with Starling that could give us some coverage as well, and we'll hear more from them today in terms of that. The airports working together with the airlines, and of course we'll open until it is no longer safe to do so. JPS, they already gave us their emergency plan from the end of May, so that is in place, and of course JUTC, which plays a critical role in relation to working with OPEM in terms of transportation to shelters, etc. That protocol is in place. And last but not least, Petrojam. We have 2 weeks supply, Prime Minister. So we are in good stead and have arrangements for backup once we know what the true situation is.
Transport and Energy Minister Beryl. Chief Executive Officer of the National Works Agency, E.G. Hunter, says measures have been taken to offset any potential fallout from major ongoing road and construction works.
Our construction sites have also been phased to reduce the impact of the hurricane, and in particular the damage caused by water. The runoff on the construction site is usually exacerbated by open areas on the construction site. On the South Coast Highway improvement projects, with areas such as Harbour View to Yalas Bridge, Stella Road, Shooters Hill, Rest Haven, Open Sea Close, Morales Drive, Peasant Drive and Comrose Drive. These are areas which are particularly vulnerable, and we have taken special steps to secure the site in these locations.
Mr. Hunter also addressed the matters concerning drain cleaning activities.
Incidences of flooding should not be necessarily confused with lack of drain cleaning, because it is the capacity of the drain that ultimately determines whether or not flooding occurs. Nonetheless, we started our drain cleaning activity in May. We've also added a couple of other areas, Wikiwaki in St. Andrew, the two bridges on the Sandy Gully in the vicinity of the Washington Boulevard and on Spanish Town Road. We've also tackled the South and the North Gully in St. James, Danvers Pen in St. Thomas, low-lying areas in Kingston, Portmore, Seaview Gardens, the drain along Marcus Garvey Drive. We have taken the precaution to do some cleaning in that area. The intensity of the rains that are anticipated will overwhelm the existing capacity of the drains in those areas. So some flooding will be expected.
In the Danvers-Penn community where we have had challenges with the
CEO of the NWA, E.G. Hunter, speaking at this afternoon's press briefing. Meanwhile, the NWA will activate an Emergency Operations Center as a satellite of the National Emergency Operations Center. The NWA Center will receive flooding and roadblock reports, while response teams from the agency will be mobilized. And Communication Manager at the National Works Agency, Stephen Shaw, says disaster preparedness efforts have been ramped up in St. Thomas. Speaking with Radio Jamaica News, Mr. Shaw said additional attention is being given to flood-prone areas in the parish, adding that critical work is underway.
In the Danvers-Penn community where we have had challenges with the river reaching the embankment, causing some problems, we have actually started the process to recreate the embankment in that space to try and mitigate the impact of any floodwaters that may come in that space. Elsewhere in the parish, as you know, we have the S-chip project that is ongoing between St. Thomas and Portland. We have written to the contractor, China Harbour, and have asked them to increase their activities around the installation of drains where it is possible.
The NWA will also deploy a response team in the parish.
They are also expected to have personnel and equipment on standby to respond to any issues that may arise resulting from the ongoing works in this space. We have asked them to pay particular attention to some areas between Harbour View and Amity Hall over there in St. Thomas. So areas like Shooters Hill, South Haven, Golden Grove, Amity Hall, these areas are to get specific attention because we are aware of issues in respect of stormwater flows.
Communication Manager at the National Works Agency, Stephen Shaw. Meanwhile, the St. Thomas Municipal Corporation is reporting that almost all critical drains in the parish that fall under its control have been cleaned. Roads and Works Superintendent in the Municipal Corporation, Odell Felix, says the drain that runs parallel to the Bath Health Centre is to be cleaned. He says of concern is the Bamboo River Drain and the Port Moran Square, which are NWA drains. Mr. Felix adds that even when the Bamboo River drain is cleaned, the volume of water can pose a serious challenge. In the latest from the region, conditions in Trinidad and Tobago fare better as the Twin Island Republic's hurricane and tropical storm warnings have been downgraded. Trinidad is now under an adverse weather alert at orange level. Tobago has been removed from the hurricane warning and is now under tropical storm warning. Director of the Met Service, Shakir Beg, says the country is still bracing for any impact from the powerful Beryl. Meanwhile, Beryl downed trees and inundated bridges and streets in Grenada. Its winds also took the roof of a police station. Mainland Grenada has so far been given the all clear. And the hurricane warning that was in effect for St. Vincent and the Grenadines has been downgraded to a tropical storm watch. The country's Met Service says a flash flood watch remains in effect. It says it is now bracing for possible impact on Wednesday from another disturbance, with a 50% chance of developing over the eastern Atlantic. The government has not yet issued the all clear. And the Barbados government says it is now assessing the damage following the passage of Beryl. Minister of Home Affairs Wilfred Abrahams said the government strategically delayed giving the all-clear signal to citizens as it worked to limit potential deaths and injuries. And Tropical Storm Chris formed late yesterday in the southwest Gulf of Mexico and made landfall in Mexico less than 2 hours later. According to the National Hurricane Center, Chris had maximum sustained winds of 40 miles per hour. The storm has been downgraded to a tropical depression as it continues to bring heavy rainfall and flooding over portions of eastern Mexico. You're listening to the news segment of Beyond the Headlines. Here's a recap of our top story.